Hello, algebra class. It's Miss Odell. It is Monday, May the 3rd, and we are going to continue working on factoring. All right, so we're going to be on page 229 in your textbook. We're going to be talking about polynomials. Again, factoring a common factor from a polynomial. Remember that in review here, finding the greatest common factor. So first of all, you want to find your prime factors, and then you want to find your common factors, and then you want to multiply your answer. Multiply to find your answer, okay? So here's our example at the bottom. So we were finding the greatest common factor of 12x squared y squared and 15x to the 7th y to the 5th. All right, so I've already found our prime factors here and our prime factors there. I've already written them there. So we're on our last step here pretty much. So what do we have in common? I have a set of 3's in common. I do not have any 2's in common with 15, and I don't have any 5's in common in 15. Now, let's look at x squared and x to the 7th. Remember, if this was written out, it would be x times x, or x times x times x times x times x times x. So I have 2 x's in common, or you could subtract the 2, and that would give you the correct answer as well, which is what we will do here, or just write the lowest because you know that you have 2 in common. You have 3 more, but you don't have those there. So here's your answer, 3x squared y squared. Now, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be factoring a common factor from a polynomial. Remember, a polynomial is many terms. So how to factor a polynomial? Well, you're going to write it as a product of prime polynomials, which is finding the prime factors. And then polynomials can be factored no further. Now, here are your steps. You're going to find the prime factors of each term, which we've already done that, and then we've used that to find our greatest common factor, which is just what we just did. And I just want to stop and just let you guys know, if you have questions and you don't understand this, I'll be available all day, except when I've got to take my mom to the doctor at 4 o'clock. But other than that, I will be available to help and answer any questions, okay? Now, so you're going to find the greatest common factor, and then you're going to see you're going to divide each term by that greatest common factor to determine what factors remain. And then you're going to write the factored form as the product of the GCF and the remaining polynomial, and then you can check your answer as well. Now, let's practice some of these. So I have 10x to the 4th plus 5x to the 3rd plus 20x squared. Now, I am going to factor each term in order to find the greatest common factor, okay? So let's just start here with 10. I know that 2 times 5, so my factors here are 2 times 5 times x to the 4th. Now let's go to 5. And 5, our only factor here is 5 because it's already in its prime state. 20 is 4 times 5. And your prime factors are 2 times 2 times 5 times x squared. Now, we see that we have a 5 in common with all 3. All 3 of these numbers do not have a 2. So our only factor in common is 5. Now, I have x to the 4th, x to the 3rd, and x squared. I'm going to go with the smallest as long as it's the same variable, which is 5x squared. Now, this is where it gets a little different. So now I'm going to take my equation, 10x to the 4th plus 5x third, or cubed rather, divided by, or plus 20x squared. Now, this is when it becomes important, okay? And I'm going to do my division, all right? So now, I'm going to take 5x squared, and I'm going to divide each term by 5x squared, because that is my greatest common factor. All right? So, 10 divided by 5 is 2. x to the fourth divided by x to the second, and your answer is going to be 2x squared plus 5x to the third divided by 5x squared is going to be 3. Subtract 2 would be 1. 5 divided by 5 would be 1, but technically it's just going to be x, okay? So you could have an invisible 1 in front of the x, and then you could have an invisible exponent, but you do not need to do that. 20 divided by 5 is 4, and x squared divided by x squared cancels each other out. So here's what you have left. So here's what you're going to do. And we're going to have to scratch this because we'll do that on another page. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to take your 5x squared. You're going to put it on the outside of your parentheses. And then you're going to put your answer on the inside. And that is how you solve by factoring the polynomials, by finding the common factor. Okay, let's practice some more. All right, let's practice another one. Okay, so this time we're going to have 8x to the 7th, 8x to the 7th plus 4x to the 6th minus 12x to the 3rd. Now remember, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to find the greatest common factors of each of these terms. Okay, now let's start here. So I already know that the factors for 8 are 2 times 2 times 2 times x to the 7th. I also know that the prime factors for 4 are 2 times 2 times 2 times x to the 6th. Now, 12, I know, but I'm going to just make sure that you know. So here are your prime factors for 12, which is 2 times 2 times 3, x to the 3rd. Now, we're going to look for our common factors. We have a set of 2's. In this case, we have another set of 2's. What do we do when we have two numbers? We're going to multiply those, which equals 4. Okay? In this case, I have x to the 7th, x to the 6th, and x to the 3rd. So it's going to be 4x to the 3rd. All right? Now, I'm going to take each one of these terms and I'm going to divide. Okay? So now I'm going to do my division. 8x to the 7th plus 4x to the 6th minus 12x to the 3rd. I'm going to divide it by 4x to the 3rd and divide by 4x to the 3rd. Okay? Now, 8 divided by 4 is 2. When I subtract this here, I'm going to get 4 because 7 minus 3 is 4. Plus, this would be an invisible 1. I don't need to put it there, but x, 6 minus 3 is 3. I'm going to put my subtraction. 12 divided by 4 is 3. And my x is canceled out. Okay? So now I'm going to rewrite my problem by using my prime, or my greatest common factor, which is 4x to the 3rd. And then I'm going to use what I have left over as the rest of my answer. This may seem difficult, but it's really not when you get all the steps. All right, so let's try another one here, okay? So I'm going to find my prime factors. I know for 25, my prime factors are 5 times 5 times x to the 3rd times y. My prime factors of 40. You can go over here and do that. 2 times 20, 2 times 10, and 2 times 5. Okay? So 40 equals 2 times 2 times 2 times 5 x squared y squared. 5 is already in its prime state, So that's 5 times x times y to the third. Now, so here I see I only have a 5 and a 5 and a 5. So 5, let's do that in different colors so we can see that easy. So 5. Now let's look at our x's. X to the third, x to the second, and x. Which one is the smallest? X. And then I have y, y to the second, and y to the third. My smallest is y. Then I'm going to divide. So you find your GCF, divide, and then write your answer. Okay? So here we go. 25 x to the third y plus 40 x squared y squared plus 5 x y to the third. I'm going to divide every term by 5xy. $25 divided by 5 is 5. X to the third minus x1 would be x squared, and y minus y is that cancels, okay? So plus 40 divided by 5 is 4. X squared, which would be 2 minus 1, because imagine there's a 1 here and a 1 here, so 2 minus 1 is x. And then y, 2 minus 1 is y, plus 5 divided by 5 is 1. We don't need to put that there. X divided by x cancels. Y to the third would be y to the second, because 3 minus 2. Now, I'm ready to write my answer. Simply put it there. Here's my greatest common factor, 5xy. And that's your answer. Now, let's do one more here, and then if you have any further questions, let me know, and I'll be happy to help you, okay? So first of all, we're going to find the greatest common factor. So remember, find the GCF, divide, and then write your answer. Okay? All right, so I know that 10 equals 2 times 5 times x squared. 18, you may not know what that off your head, 2 times 9, which of course is 3. So 18 equals 2 times 3 times 3 times a squared times x. Of course, we know 6 is 2 times 3 times a times x times y. Now let's look for our common factors, and we see that they have a 2, which is 2. Let's look at a's. Now, if there is not a common term in each of the, or common variable in each of the terms, then you cannot use that term as the common factor. So we can forget the a's. In fact, all we see here is that we have an 2x is what we have in common, because we do not have y in all of the other equation or terms. I take that back. There is supposed to be an a here. So you actually should have 2ax, because there's an a. But there is no y. Now I'm going to move on and do my division. So 10ax squared plus 18a squared x minus 6axy. I'm going to divide by 2ax. All right, 10 divided by 2 is 5. A divided by a cancels, and we're going to have x, because 2 minus 1 is 1, which is invisible. All right, so now 18 divided by 2 is 9. A2 minus A1 would simply be A, and cancel the x's out, minus. Notice this is coming from up here. It's got me all confused. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Your a's cancel. your x's cancel, and then you have y. So then you're going to put that answer in parentheses and bring this greatest common factor down to be right on the outside. I think one more on here, or two more. Let's go ahead and do at least one of these, or two of these. Let's find the greatest common factor of 30, 5, and 25. So 30, we know that 30, you multiply 5 times 6. You can do this in your head, which is 2 times 3 times 5 times x to the third. 5 equals 5x squared. And then 25 is simply 5 times 5. All right? Now, we notice here we only have one 5 in common. And so now, I'm simply going to divide everything by 5. I do not have any variables in common here, okay? So my greatest common factor is simply 5. So 30x to the third plus 5x squared minus 25. Divided by 5, this is an easier one for you guys, which is 6x to the third plus x squared, because that cancels, minus 20, and then 25 divided by 5 is 5. So then you're simply going to put your greatest common factor out here in the front. All right, so let's go ahead and do this one, and then we'll stop once we do this one, and then please let me know if you have questions, okay? So we're going to find our GCF, which here 4 equals 2 times x to the third. 2 simply is 2x squared. 6 is 2 times 3x. We have one set of 2's in common. And we have x to the third, x squared, and x. So it's just going to be simply 2x. Now we're going to do our division, which is 4x to the third minus 2x squared plus 6x. And I'm going to divide by 2x. Okay, so 4 divided by 2 is 2. x3 minus x2 is, x1 is x2. 2 divided by 2 cancels. 2 minus 1 would be x. 6 divided by 2 is 3, and the x cancel. And then I'm going to put my common GCF out here in the front. And that's what you do. Again, please feel free to let me know if you have any questions. Have a great day.